Well, hello, YouTube. Alex from the Lan Closet and Motorcycles Vancouver here. Today, we're going to talk about aliens. And I want to hear, do you guys believe about aliens? Tell me in the comments below. Let me know. Do you think that it's possible that this could all be the truth? So, let's get into it. Today, a journal, a paper has been released talking about the comets and the alien megastructure. So KIC 8462 852, that is the star. It has been recently, as recently as October, and then again in December, has been shown to be having some abnormal light fluctuations. Now, originally back in October, the general consensus was that there was comets or asteroids or other celestial bodies not part of the normal eclipse, not part of the normal rotation. We're coming in and out at different intervals, causing dramatic drops in light. Some as much as 20%. Now, I want to show you guys 20% light drop. That's 20% light drop on my face right there. So, that's a huge change. Visually speaking, that's a huge change. Now, the current speculation is the alien megastructure, one of the leading ones. There's these things called Dyson spheres, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with those, but that's a picture of one right here. Dyson spheres are a theoretical, technological evolution of civilization. Eventually, through requirements of power and need, we will produce large celestial-sized structures, that megalithic structures, that will transform things like stars into solar repositories, basically ways for us to create energy. Now, the reason they suggested that initially was because of the strange timing and inconsistency of the light drops. Let's go back in the article. I'll talk a little bit more about that. The strange dimming of the star was made famous by speculation that it could host alien megastructure. Even stranger than we knew, in fact, based on the new findings. If they survive peer reviews, which we're hoping they will, which I'm sure they will, it won't make it more likely that it's hosting alien civilization, but probably discredit the current explanation that the star was briefly obscured by comets. And the reason it's probably not comets, they'll go into in this article. The papers submitted to the Astrophysical Journal letters are available for preprint on the link here, which I'll link below. It reveals that the star's oddness isn't just a recent thing. Bradley Schaefer from Louisiana State University found images of the star dating back to the 1990s, and in fact the 1980s, that specifically say it was much brighter than it was once today, noticeably brighter than it is today. In October 2015, the Kepler Space Telescope identified the strange dips in the star's light, some as large as 20%, people. 20%. And this set the internet abuzz. Excitement was high. Possible explanations that there was vast constructors, mega ships, space stations, and other things moving in and out of orbit of the star. Very exciting stuff. So this is an artist's idea of what it would look like, and this is generally how it would happen. Eventually, we would complete the sphere around the star and absorb 100% of its radiant energy. The so-called megastructure is possibly partially completed system of solar collectors, and those solar collectors could amount for some of the changes. It was never the most likely explanation. However, the absence of short-wave infrared light, IR infrared, around the star was seen as an eliminating that possibly entirely, which I don't understand, because they could be using the infrared light for energy. If they could produce energy from a sun, you think they could produce energy from all the different wave functions? I don't get it. Their solar panels are more advanced than ours is all, but speculation is that that wasn't a possibility because of the lack of IR, which I don't agree with. Nevertheless, for astronomers, such unique behavior is still very interesting and demands explanation. From the start, the possibilities were raised that a swarm of comets blocking the light from KIC 8462852, and so other theories fell over the comet hypothesis that looked like other theories fell over on top of the comet, the theory that looked to be the only one still left. When Schaefer explained that he found short-term fluctuations as an overall downward trend, he said the measurements were a challenge. The reason being is charge-coupled devices have largely eliminated the art of calculating the magnitude of stars on photographic plates. So back in the 80s and the 90s, and still, when they're taking photos of stars through telescope, you produce what's called photographic plates. They're kind of like X-ray plates, or the old photographic style plates, turn of the century stuff. It's still used that way because you're taking things that are so far. Yeah, I won't go into the photography aspect of it, but those plates are not digital. Okay, it's not something you can analyze the spectrum of. It's just something you have to look at and you have to calibrate each plate in a sense because they're uncalibrated. It's So let me go more into it, and that might make sense for more of you guys that aren't as familiar with photography plating. So one of the Schaefer, one of the few remaining astronomers with experience at this, with this plating, had to find similar stars of known brightness in the same plate and compare them to the star. So what he's saying is he had to look at other technologies that were able to find stars that were in the same region, that were being measured at that day, at that time, and have a specific amount of light it was producing, a measured amount of light, through digital means. Because without a baseline, without a spectrum, without a key, those photo plates are ranging in value. So by qualifying one of the stars, you had to first identify a star which they had information on from 30, 40 years ago. Once he was able to do that, he was able to create a calibration, in a sense, a baseline for that photographic plate. Because if star X we know is this bright, then this bright on this plate means this much. And if star Y is this bright, and we know that, we give that a value on the plate, and then the difference in those two is your scale. And you then have a concrete way of looking at how bright the other stars around them are in decreasing or increasing value. And you've got an amount. So with as few as 2, although I feel he probably calibrated with a little more than 2 for specificness. But with simple mathematics like that, you're able to take this old technology and interface it into digital information. He found, when he examined these images, he found magnitudes faded by 0.193 between the 1990s and the 1980s. So this variable, stars can experience changes just naturally, and brighter than this, for sure. They can fluctuate in shorter amount of times to much larger amounts. But this is an F-type star, which are generally considered to be highly, highly stable. One of the most stable star structures. The century-long dimming and day-long dips are both just at the extreme ends of the spectrum of timescale and uniqueness for dimming events. So by Occam's razor, all this is produced by one physical mechanism. And what he means by that is that it's a consistent trend, and that it has not a pattern daily, but a pattern generally, an abstract pattern. If you look at it over a time period, you can see a large pattern start to appear. See the black line here? Let me show you on the mouse. The black line here, this is your magnitude. Okay? So you've got your different levels of magnitudes of brightness. Okay? These here, this is your average mean. And this here is your direct cross path. Now what you see here is that it's not a linear drop. It's got some amplitude to it. Now that means that it's really hard to explain in a sense to everyone. It means that there's one factor. If there was multitudes of factors, it wouldn't be so specific. So what they're saying is that there's one thing that's probably causing these changes over time and daily. And that's a mathematical thing. So one thing, or one mechanism, or one event, or one... yeah. Something strange. We don't know what. However, what this mechanism might be still remains a mystery. So, the century-long dimming trend requires 10 to the power 4 to 10 to the power 7 times as much dust as for one Kepler dip. So it would mean that there would have to be more than 600,000 comets, all 200 kilometers wide, 127 miles in diameter, 600,000 of them, all orchestrated to pass in front of the star within the last century. The probability of such an event is staggering. Now, I'm not saying circling. We're saying that all these things, they all kept coming one by, right? Over 10, 20, 30 years, they all had to keep coming. And it's just very unlikely over 100 years. So, over 100 years, how is that possibly going to happen? Very unlikely. So besides the lack of appropriate infrared light, the slow decline in brightness doesn't fit well with the alien structure hypothesis either. Unless you believe aliens managed to build vast structures for almost nothing in the space of a century. Well, we did talk about the replicating manufacturing nanotech. Anything that can produce and replicate itself to produce more. Bacteria and things do this. Once we get electronics that we're able to use this with, which we're coming on now. We've got metals that can repair themselves and things now. Metals with memory in them that will allow shapes to fold and 3D printed. Yeah, interesting stuff. But what this means is it's either something that our scientific knowledge does not comprehend, because the likelihood of all the current theories are now gone. So it's a mystery at this point, guys. I want to know what you guys think. What you think it was, what you think could be causing the effect. As much as 20% in drops is a huge amount, guys. And they've confirmed it's not any large celestial bodies that are in orbit around the star. I think very likely it could be this Dyson sphere. I think that that's the next point. I think that looking for the SATI project, looking for radio communications is a mistake. I think that's something we do when we're baby civilization. I think when we evolve to a point, we'll use much more direct means of communication instead of a wide band communication. A hive communication instead of a spectrum communication. What I mean by that is electrons, quantum mechanics, point-to-point changes. Problem with radio and spectrum communication is they're just so bound to interference, and there's a distance drop off, and there's downsides to it, and yeah, there's a lot of negatives to why it's not the most optimal form of communication. So I think that looking for radio signals in space, we might get lucky to find another baby civilization like us, but someone like a third type civilization which is harnessing the power of stars, possibly, with solar collectors. I don't think they would be using radio towers anymore. I just... So, let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment. And I love you guys. That's Alex for Live Leak. That's my YourSay for the day. Why don't you tell me? I want to hear what you guys... I want to hear your replies to what you think the megastructure is in YourSay. I'm out. Okay, guys, it's Alex from YouTube, Motorcycles Vancouver in the Lan Closet. Good games, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Lan Closet, and I'll catch you on the next one. Make sure you subscribe. Please do it. Please subscribe, guys. Please.